the youngest murderer in history. My name is Carl, and I grew up in a small town in Kentucky, USA. In 1929, I was 8 years old and I was friends with a little girl named Cecile Van Hoos. We often spent our days looking for scrap metal to sell to earn a little money. One day, while we were arguing over a piece of scrap metal, Cecile chopped it out of my hands and hit me in the face with it. I was angry and in pain. I went home, but I was boiling with rage. I climbed up on a chair, grabbed my dad's shotgun and ran back to Cecile's house with the gun. When I got there, I said, "Now I'm going to kill you," and shot her. All for a piece of scrap metal. Just a piece of scrap metal. In court, I explained why I did it, but I couldn't believe that I really killed my friend. After I testified, I slept through most of the rest of the trial. Eventually, I was sentenced to 15 years in prison. My parents managed to post bail of only $500, so I was able to get out of jail before my sentence was up.
Right, so it's obviously worth mentioning that Carl was not 8 years old when he committed the actual crime. He was 6 years old. This happened in the year 1929, and Carl was actually born in the year 1922, so he wasn't even 7 years old at the time of conviction. At the time, Carl Newtown Mahan was not only convicted as the youngest murderer in Kentucky history, but essentially in worldwide history. So Carl was actually sentenced to 15 years in reform school, with which he did not even serve a single day. It was actually a circuit court judge that set aside the actual conviction and wrote a right of prohibition. So the right of prohibition prevented Carl from being sentenced to prison. So the right of prohibition essentially mentioned that the county judge had far exceeded his powers by allowing Carl to be tried by an actual jury. So usually juvenile cases at the time were tried directly by the county judges and exempted the jury from being part of the trial. After the Attorney General reviewed Carl's case files, he then concluded that the case was complete and then allowed Carl to remain under the supervision of his parents, therefore exempting Carl from his then assumed prison sentence. As to the ethics and the moral ground of the case, I will leave that entirely up to you guys to decide for yourself.
Some breaking news out of Oklahoma. They just released the body cam footage arresting a 12-year-old for stabbing her 9-year-old brother to death. In this video, she's constantly apologizing.
Sorry, I'm so
Come here,
sorry.
come here.
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
We're just gonna put handcuffs on just for now.
I'm sorry, just pull out here.
Where's the
I'm
knife?
sorry, Dad. I'm sorry. I don't know what to ask. I'm so sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. Please. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry.
How old are you?
I'm 12 years old.
Where's the knife?
I was upstairs in my room and I threw it out the window. And it's behind the apartment right here.
You threw it where?
I threw it out my window upstairs.
Right here?
Not right there. It's the room. It's the other room. It's right behind the apartment. This apartment right here.
So where would the knife be? On that side?
Right behind. Yeah. I'm so fucking sorry, Mama. I'm so sorry. I don't know what happened. This is something Mom shared. I'm so sorry.
What's your mom's name? What's your mom's name?
I gotta go with him. I'm so sorry. I don't know what the happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
Come over here so we're out of the paramedics way.
I don't know what happened. I'm so sorry.
Hey, what's your name? Seat for me. Sit crisscross on the grass, okay?
Okay.
Just sit there for a second. You don't have the knife on you, right?
No, I swear I don't. I'm
Sorry.
sorry. I don't. I don't. I'm sorry. I don't know what happened.
First of all, kudos to the arresting officer who handled the case like a gentleman. He actually handled the case like a true professional and treated her like a child. However, there's not much I can say preview to that with what she did on her side. So the story goes that after having stabbed her little brother, she actually went upstairs to wake her mother up and told her mom that she had stabbed her 9-year-old little brother to death. The arresting officer asked her if she was fine or if she had any injuries on her side. She took out her hoodie and the officer noticed that she had a few marks on her arms. So it's obviously safe to assume that those were self-inflicted. So those wounds were actually old wounds, but there was one newer wound that was recently inflicted. It's about high time that we as a society also learn to recognize all these signs. This is clearly a sign of some sort of mental illness. I'm not exempting the girl from a crime. I couldn't say what she did was right. It is, in all intents and purposes, extremely cruel in its nature. At the same time, you also have to acknowledge the fact that this girl mentally is not up to par. What's very disturbing is nowhere in all of that had she mentioned or said anything or asked for forgiveness from her deceased 9-year-old brother, even to ask for forgiveness from his essentially deceased spirit. I'm actually just trying to figure out what's more disturbing here. The fact that she murdered her brother in cold blood for no known reason whatsoever, or the fact that she has no disregard for anything else outside of the fact that she could potentially spend the rest of her life in prison. Because back in the police car, she kept saying, I'm going to spend the rest of my life in prison. I've ruined my whole future. I've ruined my life. Oh God, please forgive me. Not once did she mention anything that had to do with her brother and what she had done. That for me is extremely disturbing.
These people might be freed soon in 2023. Number 1, we have Rachel Shove. In 2012, 16-year-old Rachel along with her friend Sheila Eddy decided they no longer wanted to be friends with another girl named Skyler Neese. However, instead of just communicating and talking to Skyler about their thoughts, they decided to lure her out of her house in the early hours of July 6, 2012. Skyler thought nothing of it and believed that she was simply hanging out with two of her best friends. The two took her to some woods 30 miles away where they would stab her to death. What's more disturbing is that Rachel and Sheila even talked to Skyler's parents and helped them during the search days after the killing. It would be 6 months later when Rachel finally confessed to the horrible deed they had committed. Her parole hearing has been delayed to May 9, 2023, and currently there are 31,000 people who signed a petition on change.org to deny her parole.
You said yourself, Your Honor, this is first-degree murder. She should not give any leniency, and she can take her apologies and everything else and sit on them because that's about what you're.
You stood there for over a year, comforting, being with us, telling us you knew nothing. When the police and everybody was coming close, then you decided to.
33,000 people in total had already signed the petition. That was actually before the parole hearing, and thank the heavens the courts listened and the people have spoken. So the story goes that both girls no longer wanted to be friends with Skyler Neese. The girls apparently also blamed the fact that they were high on marijuana, which was also supposedly influential in them committing the crime. Girls also went on further to claim that if news of them being in a relationship or them being lesbians essentially came out to light, there would be consequences. People like Rachel Shove and Sheila Eddy are the reason why our parents secretly hate our friends behind our backs. Though they'll never tell you. My parents would always make it clear that I should be very careful when it comes to friends and not share too much. Because the people closest to you are the ones that can easily hurt you, or in this case, kill you. For example, besides the fact that she killed her own best friend, Rachel Shove was very quick to save her own skin and leave her partner behind. While she got 30 years imprisonment, her own partner and girlfriend was handed a life sentence. Rachel Shove is also due to be released on the 30th of April 2028, and I'm pretty sure Dave and Mary Neese, Skyler's parents, will make her life a living hell. Without a doubt. Guaranteed.
Basically, he'd gone out to get me a birthday card, a cake for the kids. Arthur was told to sit on the thinking step. Arthur's put himself all over the floor. He's banged himself the radiator. He's hit me, he's kicked me in the process of me trying to get him back on the thinking step. He's then gone on all fours on the floor and I've told him to get up. And I shut the door over and all I heard was a crack off the floor. He was headbutting the floor on all fours. Headbutted the floor once, said, "Forget it, you're going to hurt yourself. I've phoned your dad." He went, "I don't care." At that point he was fine. And then he dropped his head again as I've tried to bear hug him and pick him up, and he headbutted the floor. The last 6 months, he's battered both more kids. He's smashed this house to pieces. He's battered his dad. He's hit me. When I tried to get him off the floor from headbutting the floor, he headbutted me and he kicked me and he's hit me. Yesterday we went to my friend's house and he pushed me down 5 stairs. "You're not my real mum, I hate you. I'm going to get my mum to kill you," he said.
Those are actually nothing short of crocodile tears. They mean absolutely nothing. Case is about Emma Tustin and also Arthur Hughes, parent to 6-year-old Arthur. Before Arthur's death, it was found that Arthur was poisoned with salt. He was regularly denied food and also water, and he was regularly beaten by his father. The very same people that are supposed to look after and protect you are the very same people that then become your death dealers. The fact that she was dishing out lies about her own 6-year-old son, whom she failed to love and care for, is absolutely disgusting. Basically, Emma carried out a fatal assault by violently shaking little Arthur and consistently banging his head on a hard surface. And that's how little Arthur died, in the hands of his own mother. The level of cruelty in this case is absolutely insatiable. Arthur Hughes, the father, wasn't present during this entire commotion, but he was also trialed and also convicted, given a 21-year sentence. He was essentially involved in repeatedly dishing out beatings to his son. Emma was given a prison sentence of 29 years and Arthur was given a prison sentence of 21 years, which was then later increased to 24 years, which was, in my opinion, as well as the judge's opinion, nothing short of lenient. And the sad reality in all of this is that little Arthur didn't even ask to be here. This level of cruelty is by far the highest level of cruelty I have ever heard of in my entire life. For those of us who don't want to have children, it's really that simple. It's either you stay on a contraceptive forever, or until you're ready to have a child, if you still want to have a child, or you put the child up for adoption. It's really that simple. An innocent baby should not have to deal or suffer the consequences of your decisions.
Life will never be better than his life. Your want will never trump my son's death. You get to live. You get to wake up every day. Your actions have led you to a prison cell.
Watching you sit there, smile, laugh, and shake your head like this was no big deal, I'm very tempted to just say, I'm not going to accept this sentence agreement. We'll go to trial, and if you're convicted of felony murder, you'll go to prison for the rest of your life. That means you'll die there.
I just want to tell y'all, I'll be home soon, or I'll be Keon. I love my family.
That's all you got to say.
Fatal damage found. Fatal damage found. Fatal damage found.